The human brain can process 11 million bits of information every second, but the vast majority of this is completed by the subconscious mind. The conscious mind, although impressive, only processes a tiny fraction of this, 40 to 50 bits per second. What this often results in is us feeling emotions and recollecting sensations before we even really know why. It's what causes us to smile when we see a stranger across the room laughing at something. We don't know what they're laughing at, and they're not engaging with us, but we feel happiness. It's what causes the hair on our necks to stand on end and our heart to race if we walk into an environment which we're unsure of. We have a feeling that it's not safe, but we can't pinpoint where exactly the danger is. Both these scenarios are our brains collecting thousands of pieces of information from our surroundings, attempting to perceive what we're seeing based on past experiences and recollected memories stored deep down. A great room design can use this involuntary reflex of the mind to its advantage. Imagine someone walking into a home which has been recreated to mimic the look of a hobbit house, but they have not been told they're walking into that kind of home. As soon as they step inside, they look up and they pause. A smile comes to their face. They say, "This feels like it's from a movie. I know this movie. This is a hobbit house in the Shire from that movie, The Lord of the Rings. This looks like Bilbo Baggins' house." All of that speaking following the person's entry into the room is their conscious mind trying to reach the understanding as to why their subconscious mind signaled them to smile in the first place. My name is Chaudhry, and today I'm going to show you how we turned a dismal, left-for-dead room into a space that any golfer could walk in and appreciate. If you're a returning subscriber, hit the thumbs up. If you're new here, hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be a subscriber. Remember that if you would like my help in designing your room, you can have that help by clicking the link in the description below. Let's turn towards the computer and you'll be able to see what I see. Rachel, who follows the channel, had contacted me in regards to designing the entirety of the main level of her and her husband's new home. This home was a great find in that it sits right on the golf course. Her husband loves golf, and she's also exploring the sport. Acquiring the property at a fair price has allowed them to budget a redesign of the home and make it something special for their family. For the purpose of this video, we're going to focus on the living room, which we often referred to as the fireplace room. This room is to be the designated hosting room of the house. Rachel and her husband often host guests and friends at least once a week. It was important that we made a room that felt refined and distinguished, yet welcoming and inviting. Sometimes designed rooms can feel so polished that walking through them with your shoes or touching anything will give you anxiety. We didn't want that. The goal in this design was to create a sense of charm and admiration for a high-class space that would be comparable to the social rooms you would find within noteworthy golf clubhouses. We did have some parameters, a small list to work within that Rachel had mentioned to me. She had an affection for the original Spanish tiling on the floor, so our aim was to leave that alone and find a look which would complement it. Her and her husband had two sofas from their old house that they wanted to use. One of them was a velvet green. The other was a sort of tan camel type color. One of their regular hosting events is poker night, so we needed a space where that could be accomplished. They loved the idea of bookshelves, but they weren't sure if those current bookshelves in the room or the placement of them was ideal. Rachel used to be in the service and hospitality industry and knows her way around making a great cocktail. In order to best serve their guests, their friends, their family, they wanted direct accessibility to beverages, glasses, and the mixers used to create those drinks. And finally, their boys play piano and have been taking lessons, so they were eager to have a place in the home where that piano could go. Here is what we came up with. This room really came together given the color parameters we had between the two sofas and keeping the original flooring. It actually worked out quite well because we were able to mimic the color combinations of what you would find on the green. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, that's part of the golf course. You're out on the fairway, you're playing golf. What are the colors that you're seeing when you look up? Varying colors of green, browns and reds from the wooded areas and the rough, beiges and tans from the sand within the bunkers, and whites, the golf ball itself, flags, carts, clouds in the sky. We were able to bring all of those together, making for an easygoing transition from course to home and from home to course. Considering that you can see the course from this room's window, it really creates a sense of joy for someone who loves golf. The paint color we used in the room is called Foxhall Green by Sherwin-Williams. This color is complex with its mixtures of slate and yellow undertones, but it is so beautifully sophisticated. The shade of the color works very well in rooms that have a bit of natural light from windows or doors. It does an excellent job of creating that moody vibe that I know so many of you enjoy. When standing in the living room and looking towards the window and door, there's quite a bit to break down here. So let's try to quickly disassemble the design in its totality and see why it works. The two sofas I mentioned, these were going to go into the room regardless, and we needed to design around them. The velvet green sofa makes it quite obvious as to how and why we arrived at our paint color. As for the other sofa, the tan one, this particular shade was not something I was looking to use more than once in the room, but I had no problem in using other colors which could be extracted from that tan shade. Remember that nearly every color is simply the sum of a bunch of other colors mixed together. If you're able to pull the colors out as if they were ingredients in a recipe, you're likely to find something that you can pair nicely in the room. This leads us to the beige colored drapes. It's part of that tan family, and it serves the purpose of achieving the sand tones we wanted from the golf course. Now, here's something you might have to pay a little bit more close attention to in order to pick up on. If you were to take the sofa and you put it in a blender with the drapes, the hue that you would come out with would be something very similar to that of the wood beams that we put on the ceiling. That stain on that wood is called warm caramel, and that is how we tied the tan from the low point to the high point. You might be asking, why would you even bother putting the wood beams on the ceiling at all? Golf is quite an old sport. It stems from the 15th century. If you were to picture interiors from that time frame, you could expect to see a lot of peaked ceilings and a lot of exposed trusses. Even the ceilings that were not peaked in those times, it would be likely that you would see some type of raw framework and decorative ceiling pattern. Our inclusion of the wood beams, it pays homage to the age of the sport and the times in which it originated. The piano found its home in front of the large window. It does have that traditional gloss black coat to it. Black was not something we were initially trying to put in this design, but we couldn't have the piano sitting out like a sore thumb and nothing to help blend it, so we found it some friends. Nothing overbearing, small items that would assist the black in merging with the rest of the design. A skinny floor lamp, the light coffee table, and a compact side table. That was it. Looking at the fireplace side of the room is relatively straightforward. On the wall, you have a medley of 3 high-definition photographs of fairways. We organized the photo frame sizing in such a way that seemed the most visually appealing. Oftentimes, gallery walls are something that you have to play around with. Sometimes you want a collection of photos to have a clear edging, a clear perimeter, which they're all working within. Sometimes you allow for a little bit of play outside of those lines. My best advice is to go with your gut, then take 10 steps back, look at it again, and find out whether your gut was lying to you. I wanted the fireplace here to be a point of interest, but I didn't want the entire section of that wall to be the focal point as soon as you walk into the room. Dealing with this was a simple approach of making the brick fade into the background and pulling the fireplace into the foreground. I did like the brick, but I liked it for its texture, not for its color. So we continued the foxhole green right over it. The fireplace itself had been treated like a second-class citizen. We gave it a fresh ivory mantle surround to embrace it and provide that distinction it deserves. The largest wall in the room did become the elongated bookshelf display. The center of it has that glass paneling that you can see, and that became the beverage and bar area. If you're someone who has been wanting to include a bar or display in your room, but you've struggled to find the space to do so, try to reframe your mind from thinking of how to add more pieces into the room and instead focus on how you can repurpose something that you already have, or finding a way that an existing piece can become multi-purpose. We had no way to integrate a full-sized bar without crowding the room or the whole design becoming kind of tacky. Using a portion of the bookshelves to accommodate this feature seemed like a more graceful option with a smart look. You have now seen the transformation of a living room with no personality, reborn with a connection to its environment and the people that live within it. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up. If you feel like sticking around a while, feel free to subscribe.